Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I'm Ryan Davies, Digital Marketing Advisor with Equa Marketing and one of the co-hosts of the Veterinary Business Podcast. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics from practice management and marketing strategies to leadership development, HR best practices, AI law, and so much more. Whether you're a practicing veterinarian, a practice owner, practice manager, or a student studying to be a veterinarian, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges and opportunities in the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for more resources and tools that will help support your growth. And remember to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Music, iTunes, Spotify, or any of the popular podcast platforms. And I am delighted to welcome back my good friend, Narain Aruraja, the brilliant mind behind the Veterinary Business Podcast and the CEO of Equa Marketing. Thank you, Narain, for being here. And for today, we are going to explore the KPIs for measuring veterinary practice success, relying on your expert guidance. So I'm really excited. Always fun when we do these together. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. And thank you, Ryan, for having me. And having been working in the veterinary practice marketing space for 17 years now, I think there's a few things I've learned along the way as to what to do and not to do with regards to marketing.
Absolutely. You've taught me so much. You've taught our audience so much. So I'm excited to continue to teach them more from your guidance here. But as I mentioned, today we really want to talk about KPIs for measuring veterinary practice success. So KPIs being key performance indicators, there are countless numbers of them. And I think every day it feels like there's another KPI that people are talking about or a new way of measuring things. But maybe just talk about the importance and the context of veterinary practice marketing and what KPIs are.
So let's start there. I think that's a great place to start. So what are the key performance indicators in the context of veterinary practice marketing? So being a marketing expert, I don't want to talk too much about things outside of marketing because I want to stay to my niche, the area that I understand. So I'll kind of name drop a few and then we can go into depth about those ones. So some of the key performance indicators you want to track are the most important key performance indicator is how many new patients are you getting every month from marketing, right? Really simple. You absolutely must know this because then you can say, okay, am I getting enough? Or am I not getting enough new patients, new clients from marketing? The second one is conversion rate. This is something that 90% of you won't know. And what it is like the percentage of new clients who are calling. That is a percentage of new clients who are booking appointments versus the ones who are calling. So let's say 100 new clients call your office, but only 50 booked appointments. That means your conversion rate is 50%. So the reason this is a really important key metric is just with a little bit of training and monitoring, you can increase the number of new clients significantly by working on this metric. If you don't work on this metric, you cannot increase the number of new clients because your marketing might be working, the phone might be ringing, but because your conversion rate is low, you're missing a lot of opportunities. You're missing a lot of new clients. So that's the second key metric. The third one, especially in the world of SEO, some of you may have heard me talk about, how, SEO is the most cost-effective way to get new clients. So if you are in that camp and you really focused on it because you want to spend 20% of what everybody else spends in marketing, the most cost-effective way to get new clients, then obviously one of the key metrics is how many keywords and phrases are ranking on page 1 of Google. Because the more keywords and phrases that are ranking on page 1 of Google, the better you're going to do. And ideally the minimum target, the minimum number you want to aim for is 100. So if you're ranking for 100 keywords and phrases in the top 10 results, you are in the top 5% of practices that get 95% of the benefit.
Amazing. And I think that's the really important thing. Like you just said, these are great numbers to understand. But why are they so important for that marketing success? Because I think I love your analogy a lot of the times around if your child brings home their report card and says, "Trust me, I'm doing well in math," you kind of need more proof than that, right? You want to say, "Well, let me see the proof in that," right? So I think maybe explain around the importance of KPIs for marketing success.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, right? Because imagine you have kids. We probably all currently have kids who are young, or we had kids, and now they are all, grown up. So if we were to think about, our kids, let's say you have a son or daughter in grade 4. They go to school every day. They're studying really hard. And you ask them, hey, how are you doing in school? I'm doing great, right? Now, imagine a world where they never get report cards. Imagine a world where the teacher doesn't send back their exam paper with, they got 8 out of 10 versus, 2 out of 10. So imagine that world. In that world, you have no context to even verify or confirm if your kid was right, because, these are children. So if they don't know what their score is, if they don't know which questions they got right, if they don't know which questions they got wrong, how can they improve? How can they continue to master the subject matter that they need to master, and be successful in the current grade and hopefully go to the next grade? Because in the next grade, they're going to learn harder concepts that are going to build on the concept they learned this year, right? So it's really, really, really important for our school system or education system to work, to have exams, to have answer sheets where how many questions you got right, to have grades, so who's doing really well, who are the A kids versus who are the C kids, because the C kids might need extra help, right? So now, unfortunately, in a practice, we don't know. We are like walking blind. Even something as simple as number of new clients you're getting every month. I have had these conversations with practice owners. Many of them don't know this information. They have to go check, they have to go look. And imagine you are a teacher and you don't pay attention to your kids' grades. Your kids are not going to do better. But if you do pay attention to their grades and you keep talking about their exams and what they did right and what they can improve, those kids will continue to do better because they're focused on it. They're focused on what they need to do to go to the next level. So I think KPIs are like the grades. You need to know your grades. So you, the business owner, think of yourself as the teacher, along with your team members who are responsible for this, think of themselves as the students. Both can work together to improve the grade, to make tomorrow better than today, to make it fun and exciting and interesting. You have something to work towards. Versus let's work
I
hard.
think
You can clearly say, let's try to improve our call conversion rate from 50% to 60%. And in order to do that, let's listen to some calls. Let's see what can we do differently when we answer these calls.
and you've mentioned a lot of great KPIs, and I think from a marketing perspective, what we really want to focus on is number of new patients, right? And that includes client acquisition costs that you had mentioned before. Tell us a little bit more about the number of new patients and number of new clients, and being able to understand calculate that client acquisition cost.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer both questions. Like, what how do you calculate number of new clients? I guess I'm going to use the word clients versus patients because
Yeah,
pets don't pick up
pet
the phone and
parents.
call us. Yeah, so clients are the pet parents. Maybe there'll be a day when there'll be a chip in the pet's brains and they can pick up the phone and call and book their own appointment. But we are not there yet. Anyways, they're like, "Oops, I need some what do you call treats?" It thinks about it, and the chip order goes to Amazon and orders the treats, and the
Those
treat
would
shows
break me
up.
with that. Just going straight on Amazon or whatever they needed. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, imagine like like I had kids when they were teenagers, and they knew my password or they would have access to my computer, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?" These huge Amazon bills. I'm like, then I change my password and I don't save my password afterwards. So, anyway, so
Yeah.
imagine that. So coming back to new clients, so the way to calculate new clients is you want to know what is that total number, what is that complete number, and then you want to know where they're coming from. So for example, you have Google Ads running, right? So you got 10 new clients from that, and it cost you $2,000, right? So $2,000 divided by 10, each client is costing you $200, right? Now you are running um, um, SEO, again, 10 new clients. but that's costing you $500, right? Now, $500 divided by 10, your cost of acquiring that new client is $50, right? So as a business owner, you will start looking at those numbers and saying, okay, my cost of acquiring a customer is $50 with SEO and $200 with Google Ads. So why am I wasting time on money on Google Ads, which is 4 times more expensive? It's like, buying the same cup of coffee for $5 versus $1. Right? You want to make sure that you're getting the same outcome. You want to spend as less as possible. So cost of acquiring a client becomes really important. So know your new client numbers as well as the CAC, cost of acquisition. And the other thing that I want to throw in here is, in addition to knowing your CAC, cost of acquisition, you also want to know what's the value of that new client. Because remember, you're running a business, and in a business, if you're spending, let's say $100 to acquire a new client, and that client is going to spend $1,000 with you every year for the next 6 years, 7 years, 10 years on average, based on the historical data you have. Now that's a great deal, right? Because for $100, you're going to make $1,000 times 6 years, $6,000. So your benefit is $100 invested, you get $6,000 back. Now you don't make profit. I mean, in other words, that entire 6,000 is not profit. You have expenses, you have rent to pay, team members to pay. Maybe your profit is 35%. So out of 6,000, 35% is around $2,000. So you're spending $100, and over a 6-year period, you make $2,000 from it. So that's the reason that's important is, you might be willing to spend more and more money on marketing if you really have a grasp on the lifetime value of your customer. That's called the lifetime value. How much is that customer worth to you over the life of that customer?
So you mentioned about, again, that's acquiring new clients and new pet parents coming through. And once you get seen more and more often, as you talked about, it really comes down to conversion rate as well. So maybe talk to us a little bit about what is conversion rate? Why is it so important? And once you kind of recognize those things, how do you improve on your conversion rate?
Yeah, conversion rate is the percentage of new clients who end up booking appointments of all the new clients who end up calling your office. 100 people call your office new clients, 50 book. That means your conversion rate is 50%. And a lot of times, like I said, 90% of you won't even know what your conversion rate is. And if you ask your team, how are you doing with your conversion rate, which they don't know what the percentage is, they'll say, we are doing great. And after you start tracking this conversion rate, we use people and technology to literally listen to calls for our clients and tell them what their conversion rate is. So let's say your conversion rate is 50%, and now you are our client and we have a meeting with you, and you have your team members. They can't believe their eyes. Like, you're telling us we're only booking 50% of the new clients? Absolutely. And then you start understanding the psychology, and the psychology is, in their mind, everyone they didn't book is quote unquote a bad client. So we didn't book them because we don't want them. You know what I mean? So we as humans have this mindset of justifying our actions after the fact, right? So they asked a question about price, and immediately we think it's a bad client because he's a price shopper or she's a price shopper. But think about it. Every single one of us know the questions we know how to ask. How many of us have gone to veterinary schools? I'm talking about pet parents. Nobody. How many of us have worked in a veterinary office? Probably nobody. So we don't know any other questions to ask versus the only question we know to ask is price. So when I see a lot of times, the minute price comes up, the team fumbles it. Another reason I see the conversion rate being low is not taking control of the call, right? Like, a lot of times the people answering the call are not trained to do this job. They're in this business of sales. They never come from sales. They're typically like somebody who's available and who has some decent phone skills, and you're hiring them. You're not really checking, have they done any sales jobs, and what was the references on the sales job? Did they do a good job selling, and so forth? So they don't have the training, but simple things like, taking control of the call. Hey, I'm, Naren, who am I speaking to? Oh, thank you, Ryan, for calling me today. I'm so glad you're calling us about your Sheltie. That's awesome. How old is your Sheltie? Building rapport, right? Like getting to know the client, making them feel important, telling them, hey, we have tons and tons of Shelties in our practice. We love being able to take care of your Sheltie. So, how old is he? Like really, really building a rapport, building that relationship, finding out why they're calling. Maybe they're just calling because they just got a new pet and they need a vet. Show that, like, hey, we have dozens of shelties. By the way, you can go to our website and see, some of the shelties that we, who are in our family today, and we would love to help you. This is how we do things. Come on by. You're going to meet Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith has 12 years of experience credentialing the doctor, making them feel confident that they're calling the right office. He really, really specializes in taking care of, dogs and cats and, small animals. And he really takes care of the pet from the time the pet is a baby all the way to, adulthood and, old age. So that's what he does. So you really can credential and build credibility. And more importantly, asking for an appointment. Many people that when we listen to calls don't ask for appointments. So they're literally answering questions. And because they don't ask, they don't get, right? I mean, you have to control the call. You have to lead the call. Sometimes without knowing, the client will ask a dumb question like, how much does this cost? Or does that cost? And it's hard to say anything because you haven't met the pet. You don't know what the needs are. So like, how do you answer those questions? How do you answer those, like I call them like, in New York, you don't want to walk into a, dark alleyway in the middle of the night, right? Because you don't know what's, behind that alleyway. So you don't want to get mugged or you don't want to get, attacked or something, right? So same way, like sometimes the clients might accidentally walk into those alleyways. Instead of walking in with them and getting mugged together and you losing that relationship, how do you turn them around? How do you get them back into a position where now you're back in control and you're booking that appointment? So the minute you know your, conversion rate, now you can say, hey guys, we are getting 50% conversion rate. Let's listen to calls. Let's come up with some ideas on what we can do differently. And maybe we'll aim for 55%. And then next month, okay, did we hit 55? Great. Oh, we were at 54. Great. How do we go to the 60%? So you continue to work on it. So this is such a simple way. You spend an hour a week, assuming you have the data behind it. Somebody's giving you the conversion rate and pointing out the calls to listen to, so you don't have to listen to hundreds of calls. Then you just have to spend an hour a week working on it every single week. That hour a week will have seen double your new client without you even spending an extra dime on marketing. So instead of getting 50 new clients, in that example I just gave you, you could be getting 100 new clients.
Amazing. I always love listening to you talk about that because, again, it's just so important, that last step, right? And you've worked so hard to get people to be able to find you and to want to pick up the phone to call you, and they're ready to choose you. But like you said, we're just not asking the right questions. They're just not, you're not asking for the appointment, or it's, hey, great, have I answered all your questions? Thanks, click. Like, that's not really the point of the conversation. So I really love how you kind of piece all of that together. I want to rewind a little bit more here as we kind of wind down on this as well. You mentioned about a practice ranking for 100 or more keywords on page 1 of Google. And you mentioned, that that's really a significant number to be able to, capture a lot of the traffic and attention. But maybe talk a little bit more about that significance, but how do you measure that, and how do you continue to monitor it? Like you said, how do I even know if I've got 10 or 1,000, or and if last month I had 50 and now I'm at 55? So maybe give us an idea of how you can kind of monitor and work on that growth as well.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So we kind of touched on this. So if you look at the different ways you can get new clients, SEO is one, Google Ads is another, social media, organic social media is one, social media ads is the fourth one. So combined, digital marketing will drive 95% of your new clients, versus traditional marketing like print and radio will drive 5%. So definitely don't waste your time and money on traditional. It just doesn't work. At least over the last 17 years, I only see, digital marketing like growing and growing. And today it's 95% of new clients versus traditional is only 5%. The second point I would leave you with is, with digital marketing, SEO is the lowest cost. So if you were to compare apples to apples, the cost of a new client through Google Ad versus SEO would be a fraction of the cost. So once you know your cost of acquisition from SEO versus Google Ads, lean into SEO because it's going to cost you a fraction of what any other solution is going to cost you. So what I would recommend as far as SEO is concerned is, like, how do you get into that haves and have-nots camp? I mean, we hear about the fact that 1% of society controls half of the wealth or something ridiculous like that, right? Of course, it's so unequal. The top people have so much money compared to everybody else, right? So the same way here, SEO is like for the top 5%. If you're in the top 5%, you're going to get 95% of the free traffic. Same thing. In other words, 95% of new clients are going to find you if you are in the top 5% of SEO. So that way, you save a lot of money on other forms of advertising, which are like, orders of magnitude more expensive. But what does it mean to be in the top 5%? What does it mean to dominate SEO? Typically, the metric is you need to rank for 100 keywords and phrases on page 1 of Google. So what is page 1? Top 10 results. So people type something in like, dog doctor near me, somebody layman, right? Or veterinarian near me, or, shots, whatever or they are having a certain issue, like, they're having an issue with their pet and they're typing that issue. And whatever they're typing in, are you showing up in the top 10 results? And at least 100 such keywords are you showing up in the top 10 results? In our experience in 17 years, that's a good metric. If you are ranking for 100 or more keywords, you are in the top 5%. You're going to get 95% of the free traffic. So work towards it. So in our case, we'll tell our clients within 12 months, you should at least rank for 100 or more keywords on page 1 of Google. So that's a key thing we work on. So we measure it every quarter and we make sure it's improving. And eventually we get to that 100 number by the end of 12 months. And we have clients who have been with us for 3 years. They're ranking for 400 keywords, for example. So you want to continue to improve the number of keywords and phrases you are showing up for on page 1 of Google. There are other metrics you should also look at, but to keep this podcast short, I'm not going to get into those.
I think that's great. I mean, you got to start, and those, I think, the amazing places to start. And I know on other podcasts, we've talked about some of those other things you need to do. So I encourage people to definitely go back and listen to how to get there. But I think like you nailed it in terms of the importance behind it and things like that. And you mentioned before about, with the call review, spending an hour a week to kind of go through it and things like that. What about from the KPI standpoint? How often should veterinary practices be reviewing their KPIs or adjusting them for, for what their growth model is?
Great question. So let's take new clients, right? So that one I would get it every month if I'm the practice owner, and I would make a decision. Do I get enough new clients or not enough new clients? If I am not getting enough new clients, what can I do to drive more of it? But if my conversion rate is low, I won't touch it till I fix the conversion rate. Because what's the point of doubling your marketing budget when you're losing half of the new clients who are calling you because your conversion rate sucks, right? The second one, call conversion rate, again, get it monthly, but work on it, at least once a month with that phone call we talked about. But if you can, like Ryan suggested, do it even weekly, right? There's no harm in you listening to calls every week and providing feedback every week. But at the very least, listen to calls every week, or have your marketing company do that for you and give you the calls that you should listen to. So you don't have to listen to hundreds of them. You can pick and choose and listen to 6 or 8 of the right calls. Some good, some not so good. So you can coach your team on it. And plus, you need to know your conversion rate every single month. And finally, the keyword rankings, again, track it monthly, but to really move the needle. So let's say you're ranking for 30 keywords on page 1 of Google. To get it to, let's say, go to 50, it might take 3 months. So that one, you have to be patient. And now I know we didn't get into the details. So there are some underlying things you have to work on in order to get the number of keywords ranked better and better. So quality backlinks, NAP, Google Lighthouse Score, Google Eat. So these are additional things you should be tracking as far as SEO is concerned. But those also I would track quarterly. So every quarter I would see, how are those metrics improving? Are we doing a better job? Is the number of keywords we are ranking for going up? Those types of things.
Perfect. I think that's incredible. Great synopsis. Now what? What's the next step from here? Again, I think for a lot of veterinary practice owners, people listening, things like that, it's okay. So now I know what I need to do. How do I really get a grip on this? And I know that's something that you do incredibly well, and your team is helping to understand those base numbers so that you have something to go forward with.
Absolutely. So I think the next step would be, book what we call a marketing strategy meeting. And the link is veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. We'll put a link on the show notes. And obviously in the newsletter that you are hearing about this, there'll be a link click on it, book a marketing strategy meeting. It's a 60-minute meeting. And prior to the meeting, our team will spend several hours kind of studying your marketing. So they'll tell you, how are you doing with regards to digital marketing? How many keywords are you ranking for on page 1 of Google in the top 10 results? And why or why not? Like, if you're doing really well, here are the reasons you're doing really well. If you're struggling, here are the things you need to work on. And finally, they'll give you a 12-month detailed plan on exactly what you need to do to get to that top 5%, dominate your marketing. So it's a very comprehensive meeting, and you will learn perhaps a lot. And if you actually go and read some of our reviews, one of the things people talk about is, how wonderful that meeting is, how much they learn as part of that meeting.
Absolutely. I think that's again, you got to get that first step. And if you're going to build your tower, right, you've got to understand, you got to have a strong foundation. So this is really understanding that foundation. Those MSMs are phenomenal. veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. And with that, I think that kind of sums up our episode here and gives us a great place to understand a little bit more about KPIs for measuring veterinary practice success. Thank you so much, Narain, for joining us today and talking about it all. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. I really had a lot of fun.
I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. Of course, we appreciate each and every one of you, and we can't do what we do without you. So if you like our podcast, please kindly share it with your colleagues and friends on social media. And don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It's your reviews and kind words that are going to help other doctors and practice owners find us and help us bring you more amazing guests like Narain to break down some of these topics that can be so daunting. So until next time, keep striving for excellence, making a positive impact in the lives of your patients and pet parents. And I'm wishing you all an amazing week ahead. Thanks, everybody, and take care.